Old school Pokemon here, back again with my second YouTube video of 2024. In today's video, I wanted to kind of just talk to you guys a little bit about my process on eBay Live. Some of the things that I've learned over the past 7-ish months in terms of setting up and actually running my stream in order to keep as many viewers in the stream as possible for as long as possible. So first thing we're going to touch on is probably the biggest point that I want to touch on in this video, and that is just consistency. Having consistency with your live schedule. Whether you're streaming on Whatnot, TikTok, eBay Live, wherever you're doing live streams, consistency is the biggest thing in order to be successful. You want to be consistent so that people know when you're going live and they can anticipate when you're going to be live instead of just relying upon the notifications once you actually go live. So for me, for example, I did the second half of 2023. I was on eBay Live 6 nights a week, Monday through Saturday. And going into 2024, I cut back a little bit. I eliminated Thursday nights. So now I'm live Monday through Wednesday, starting off at 8 p.m. Eastern, Friday and Saturday, starting off at 9 p.m. Eastern. This way, my core audience, the people who tune in multiple times per week, every night, whatever the case may be, they know when to expect I'll be live. They know that Monday through Wednesday, I'm going to start my stream at 8 p.m. Eastern. They know Friday and Saturday, I'm going to start my stream at 9 p.m. Eastern. So they kind of have an idea when I'm actually going to go live. They don't have to rely on getting a notification. They don't have to kind of guess when I'm going to be live, when I actually set up the stream, all of that stuff. They know when I'm going to be live. And building that core audience of viewers is really, really important. The people who come in multiple times a week, the people who come in every night, that is going to be the bulk of the viewership that you're getting on any live streaming platform. So you really want to get people to know what your schedule is going to be, and you want to stick with your schedule as best as possible. I was really proud of myself being able to do that throughout 2023, going into 2024. I've also been pretty good about sticking to a consistent schedule. So that's really important right there. The other aspects for my live specifically, obviously these differ depending on what type of live stream people are doing, whether or not you're just like a pack opener ripping packs for people, or if you're actually running auctions. Depending on what type of live stream you're doing, it's going to be a little bit different. But for me personally, I really enjoy having the best of both worlds, being able to do auctions and pack ripping in the same streams every single night. So setting up my streams, I've been on eBay Live for about 7 months now, and my strategy behind setting up these streams has varied slightly from the beginning. I think now I'm in a position where I really like the format of my eBay Lives, and I think I'm going to keep this format moving forward. And what I mean by that is just how I have the live set up. So in the beginning of my eBay Live days, back in May 2023, when I first got started, I actually started out by doing pack rips for people. So back then, the lives were a lot smaller than they are today. And so I would spend half hour just ripping packs for people, whoever wanted to have packs opened up. I would spend that time ripping packs for people. And then after that, that's when I would actually get into the auction portion of the stream. And I very quickly realized that this was the wrong format. And that is because, for one, I noticed that my viewership was a lot more consistent when I was doing auctions versus when I was doing the pack rips. I had a lot more viewers come into the stream and stay in the stream when I was doing the auctions versus when I was doing the pack ripping. And then the second part of that is obviously the notifications that eBay sends out once I actually go live. When I click go live on eBay Live, eBay sends out notifications to all of my eBay followers. And so the biggest influx in viewership comes in that first couple of minutes when everyone gets their notification saying, hey, OSP is now live. So that's when I get my biggest influx in viewership. And in order to keep those viewers in the stream, instead of doing pack ripping, I started off doing the auctions because, like I said previously, that's where I was keeping the most amount of people. So obviously, the most amount of people were interested in the auctions over the pack ripping. So I very quickly pivoted and started off all of my streams with auctions, and then I got into the pack ripping after all the auctions were over. And looking back on that now, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not exactly sure why I thought pack ripping first and then auctions back in the beginning, but the auctions first and then pack ripping makes a lot more sense because the auctions are always they're always pre-planned out. I always have an idea on how long the auctions are going to be going for. But for the pack ripping, it varies widely night per night. Some nights it's 2 hours of pack ripping. Other nights it's 4 or 5 hours of pack ripping. It just depends on how many people are in the stream wanting to open packs that specific night. So auctions first and then pack ripping. I really like that strategy. Definitely going to continue that moving forward. Now, breaking down the auction portion of the stream even further. This is also something that I played around with over the first couple of months, and I quickly realized that the strategy that I'm using now is the best way to go about it, at least for me personally. So back in the beginning of my eBay live days, I thought it would be kind of cool to theme each auction. So one night I might do base jungle fossil holo cards. The next night might do Jim and Neo holo cards. The next night I might do modern graded cards. So every auction had a specific theme to it, and all of the cards within that auction would fall within that theme. And again, I quickly realized in order to keep as many people in the stream for as long as possible, you need to have a wide variety of cards. So while I like the idea of having a specific theme to each night, so that way people could kind of plan, okay, Tuesday night is going to be base jungle fossil holo cards. Friday night is going to be modern graded cards, whatever the case may be. While I liked that idea, it was not a very good decision on my part because if someone's not interested in those base jungle fossil holo cards, they're probably not going to tune in on Tuesday night. They might just tune in on Friday night for the modern graded cards or whatever the case may be. So instead of doing those themed auctions, I quickly pivoted into doing a wide variety of cards every single night. And along those lines, there's really no rhyme or reason to what I'm running on a specific basis. Like I might start off running a PSA Mint 9 common WotC card, and then I'll switch to a PSA 10 modern chase card, and then I'll go back and do like a mid-era holo card. So there's really no rhyme or reason to what I'm running during a specific auction. It's all more so just randomness. And I do that purposefully. I don't want to be running back to back to back to back WotC cards and then do the same thing with modern cards and so on and so forth because I don't want people to get bored. I want to capture people's attention in order to keep them in the stream for the longest amount of time possible. And that's really the biggest thing when it comes to live streaming, especially with the auctions. With the pack ripping, it's a little bit different because you don't need as many people in the stream. But for auctions specifically, the more people that you have in the stream, the better off you're going to be in terms of pricing. Now, obviously, not everyone is going to be bidding on every single card, but if you have a bunch of people in the stream all at once, there's going to be a good portion of those people who are bidding on certain cards. And if you can keep those people in the stream, your auction pricing is going to do better. So that's why it's really important to not only get people in the stream, but also keep those people in the stream for as long as possible. So breaking the auctions down further, how I typically set up a night of auctions is I like to I like to keep my auctions at a 2 hour time frame. And again, this was based on trial and error back in the beginning of my eBay live days. I found that 1 hour's worth of auctions just goes by way too quickly. So then I upped it to 2 hours worth of auctions, which I felt was a really good time frame. I was able to sell enough cards that I was happy with in that 2 hours. The engagement seemed to remain pretty steady within that 2 hour time frame. So 2 hours was a good time frame right there. I then said, okay, let me try and up it a little bit. So I did 2.5 and 3 hour auctions. And I found that those auctions got to be a little bit long on my part. I was starting to get sick of the auctions at that point. And I noticed that my viewership seemed to also be getting sick of the auctions after about 2 hours, because my viewership started to drop off after about that 2 hour time frame. So again, very quickly realized that the 2 hour time frame was my best time frame for the auctions. So now I have 2 hours worth of auctions that I can run every single night. I want to stick with that time frame. So within that 2 hours, how many auctions can I actually run? Well, again, in the beginning, I started off doing 1 minute auctions with an anti snipe rule at the end. So that way, if anyone bids in the last 5 seconds, the timer gets extended another 5 seconds until nobody else bids in that final 5 seconds. And we actually have a winner for the auction. So the 1 minute auctions, I found that there was very little bid activity going on in that first 30 seconds when the timer was counting down from 60 down to 30. And then once the timer hit 30, that's when people would start bidding, and then even more bidding when the timer hit 10 seconds and below. So I knew that the first 30 seconds really wasn't important. When I was doing those minute long auctions, I was able to run 30, 40 auctions in 2 hours. So I wanted to run more auctions. So the obvious answer was to cut the time in half. So that's what I did. Instead of 1 minute auctions, I lowered it down to 30-second auctions, and I was essentially able to double the amount of auctions that I was able to run every single night. So now instead of running 30 auctions in an hour, I'm able to run 60 auctions in an hour. Um, so this worked out really well for me for a long time. And then more recently, back in November, December 2023, I wanted to kind of expand my auctions even further and run a few more items every single night. So I further lowered the timer for each auction. Instead of 30 seconds, now I'm doing 20 seconds. So I cut 10 seconds off of each auction, and I'm essentially saving 10 minutes per 2 hour stream. Running those 60 cards takes me about 10 minutes less now that the timer is cut by 10 seconds per item. So that extra 10 minutes allowed me to add in some cheaper cards at the end, where instead of having that extended bidding turned on, I do sudden death auctions. So instead of adding 5 seconds at the end, now the timer just ends. Whoever has the highest bid wins. And I'm able to do 20 cards in that 10-minute time frame. So now instead of doing 30 cards that I was originally, instead of doing 60 cards that I was with the 30-second timer, now I'm able to do 80 cards per night and still keep within that 2 hour time frame, which I think is really important for myself, for my specific streams. And that's the format that I've been currently using. That's the format that I really, really like, and I definitely want to stick with that moving forward. So 60 regular auctions, 20 sudden death auctions per night, 80 auctions total per night. I think is a really good number, and I definitely want to stick with that number moving forward, at least for the foreseeable future. Now, in terms of going back to like the inventory for each auction, how I don't like to run WotC card after WotC card after WotC card. How do I actually break down all of my auctions for a specific night? Well, like I said, I do 60 regular auctions, 20 sudden death auctions per night. The 20 sudden death auctions are usually cheaper single cards, $5 to $10 single cards, or they're my graded misses. The CGC PSA sevens, eights, the ones that I don't want to kind of highlight as a regular auction item. The ones that I just want to kind of get rid of, move through quickly. The ones that aren't going to sell for any type of premium. So I just want to get my money out of those cards. So that's the kind of stuff that I run through sudden death. So it's either most nights it's single cards just because that's what I have more of. And then I try and do once or twice a week, I'll do graded cards. So I try and mix it up a little bit. And those sudden death auctions could be anything, either single cards or graded cards. Single cards, anything WotC to modern. Graded cards, same thing, WotC to modern. There's really no rhyme or reason to those auctions. It's more so just cards that I pull for that specific night. However, The actual regular auctions, those 60 regular auctions that I'm doing every night, those ones are pre-planned, and I do put a decent bit of time into picking out those cards for that specific night. Basically, I break those 60 auctions down. In an ideal world, this is how I do it. It does vary a little bit just based on like what I'm actually running, what I actually have at the time, so on and so forth. But in an ideal world, it goes 60 total auctions broken down into 30 graded cards, 30 single cards. And then if you take the graded cards, those are further broken down into 30 total graded cards, 15 vintage cards, WotC EX era, 15 modern cards, XY to current. Mid era, I'll throw in there every once in a while. Mid era typically doesn't do that great for me for the eBay lives. So that's why I mainly stick with the vintage stuff and the modern stuff. And modern, I'm saying anything XY to current. So not technically all like Scarlet and Violet, Sword and Shield stuff. Um, but anything XY to current. So 15 vintage, 15 modern, and then I'll further break those 15 down into sections of 5. So I'll do 5 cards that are valued around $20. I'll do 5 cards that are valued between $20 and $50. And then I'll do 5 cards that are valued between $50 and usually $80 is about my cap during the week. On the weekends, Friday and Saturday night, then I'll raise it to 100 and do a couple like $100 to $200 cards as well. So that's kind of how I break everything down. That way I have different eras of Pokemon for different people. I have different price points available for different people. And then I also have graded and raw cards available for different people. And I feel that that kind of captures most areas of the market, most areas that people are interested in for my specific lives. That way I can retain as many viewers as possible. And so I do the same thing with graded cards, or I do the same thing with single cards that I do with the graded cards. I break them down, those 30 single cards, I break them down vintage, modern, I break them down by price point as well. And so that way I have a wide variety of inventory to run every single night, and I'm able to keep that engagement up during each stream, which like I said is really really important. So then when it comes time to actually run the eBay lives, once I actually click live and go live on eBay, I do also have a strategy for that as well. So the first 5 minutes of the stream, I found that that's when you're getting the largest influx of people because of those notifications within the first 5 minutes. So during the first 5 minutes, people are clicking into the stream, saying hey to everyone. And that's when I just kind of interact with the chat. I'm really not doing anything auction wise. I'm interacting with the chat, welcoming everyone in, talking about what's going to be up for tonight, talking about how I offer free shipping, talking about how the auctions all started off at $1. All of that stuff is within the first 5 minutes. And I do that purposefully. First 5 minutes, really, I'm not running any auctions because people are coming into the stream. And then things kind of slow down at that about 5 minute mark. That's when the increased viewers kind of slow down because everyone's already in the stream. And from there on out, it's just going to be kind of a trickle effect of people joining a stream, people leaving the stream, so on and so forth. So at about that 5 minute mark, that's when I start running the auctions. And I always start with lower end cards. So those $10, $20 cards, then I go up to $30 cards. And so I kind of start things off a little bit slow. And while I'm running those first few initial auctions, there's really no rhyme or reason to what I'm running. It's always completely different from the auction previous. And that is because I want to keep people's retention. I don't want people to be clicking out of the stream. I want people to be wondering what's coming up next. So I'll usually keep it a little bit similar. What I do is I do 5 graded cards, 5 single cards, 5 graded cards, 5 single cards. But within those 5 graded cards, I'll go WotC modern, maybe like an XY era card, then I'll do a Japanese card. So it's nothing like WotC, modern, and then single cards. It's always something different to keeping people on their toes, if you will. So that's kind of how I get started. I start out with some lower end cards, and then I slowly build up to around that 20-minute half hour mark. That's when I've noticed that I have my kind of peak viewership is in that within that first 20 minutes, half hour. And once we hit that half hour mark, that's typically where I want to focus my best items for the night. So the biggest cards that I'm running that night typically go within that first 20 to 30 minutes. And that's just because, like I said, that's when I kind of have my peak viewership. That's when the most amount of people are watching the stream. And obviously, when you're running those expensive cards, those more expensive cards, you want to run them when you have the most amount of viewership, because then you have the most potential bidders as well. So that's what I found for my specific streams, that 20 minutes to half hour mark. That's when I kind of have my peak viewership. From there, it kind of plateaus, and it goes down a little bit as we get towards the end of the auctions, which kind of makes sense. Um, but yeah, that's kind of how I run my eBay lives. Obviously, it's going to be different for everyone who's live streaming, whether that's on Whatnot, TikTok, eBay, wherever it might be. Your numbers might be a little bit different than mine, but it is really, really important to keep track of those numbers. Whether you're writing it down, just making a mental note, you really want to keep track of, okay, when how long until I can start running auctions? How long until I have a big enough audience that I can actually start running auctions? How long until I kind of hit my peak of viewership where I want to focus on those big cards? How long are people staying in the stream for my auctions? How long can I run auctions on any given night before people start getting bored and leaving the stream? Those numbers are really, really important, and I hope at some point, I don't know if TikTok or Whatnot does this at all, but I hope at some point eBay Live can come out with some like live metrics and be able to keep track of that stuff for me on the back end. Kind of like have some graphs showing, okay, on a typical night, on a typical Monday night, I have this many people come into the live stream within the first 5-10 minutes, and then show like a graph of how the viewership goes, whether it goes up or down. Because that information is really, really important. And hopefully one day, once eBay Live kind of gets out of beta testing and we finish kind of fixing everything that needs to get fixed, hopefully we can expand upon that and start adding like seller tools on the back end. Because for me personally, that viewership number is really, really important. And like I said, it's more so important for the auctions over the pack ripping. The pack ripping is all buy it now stuff. So you don't need a ton of people in the stream to do buy it nows, to do pack ripping and stuff like that. Whereas the auctions, where I start all of my auctions off at $1, it's really, really important that I have a good amount of viewers in the stream, so that way I'm not losing money on as many cards. Back in the beginning days when I really didn't have that many viewers in the stream, stuff was going very, very cheap, and I was losing money on a lot of cards. But at the time, it was more so me just building out the streams. I knew long term that eBay Live was going to be absolutely massive. This is what I think. And so I knew short term I'm going to lose money, but I'm building up my following. I'm able to get rid of some cards that I haven't been able to list on eBay. And so that was all part of my plan in the beginning. Is losing money is okay. Now that I've built up my following a little bit more, now that eBay Live is growing more and more, obviously I don't want to be losing money on every single card that I'm selling. So that's where that following comes in and is really, really important. One more thing that I wanted to touch on that I completely forgot about is start the pricing for your auctions. Whether or not you should price stuff at a certain percentage below market, or whether you should start them off at $1. And this is something that it really just depends on the person. I know there's some people on eBay Live who start auctions off at a certain percentage of market value just because they don't want cards going for really, really cheap. I know most people start their auctions off at $1. Me personally, I think it is very, very important to start all of your auctions off at $1. I don't think it makes that much sense to start it off, say, like 70% of market, because it kind of eliminates the excitement for the auction in my opinion. And I think if you're going to be doing the live streams, you want people to be excited. You want people to be excited about the potential of possibly getting a really good deal on a card that they really want, or even just getting a good deal on a card that they're going to immediately flip. You want people to have that excitement. And so starting auctions off at $1 keeps people excited, keeps people engaged. And like I've said throughout this video, engagement is really, really important when it comes to these live streams. So for me, the starting off at $1 is one of the most important things. That is something that I've always done. That's something that I'm always going to continue to do moving forward. And I know it's tough in the beginning when you're first getting started as a live seller on TikTok, whatnot, eBay, wherever you're live streaming. It's tough as a seller to start items off at $1 when you don't have that reputation, when you don't have that following, when you don't have that viewership yet. But you want to look at it as like you're investing in yourself, you're investing in your business. At some point you're going to grow, and when you grow, that's when you're going to start actually making money on these cards. So instead of running cards at a certain percentage of market, just run cheaper cards that you're not necessarily into for a lot. Back in the beginning of my journey on eBay Live, I was running a lot of $10, $20 cards that I wasn't listing on eBay because they weren't near mint condition. So it's cards that I had just sitting back in my back stock that I really wasn't doing anything with. So being able to get out of those cards for whatever I could was nice for me. Plus, I was on eBay Live. I was growing that following. I was growing that side of my business. So while I wasn't making as much as I could on every single card, the long-term potential is what I always had in mind. And I think that's another really important aspect is you want to kind of set yourself apart from the competition. And starting auctions off at $1, I think does set you apart from a lot of other sellers on these different platforms. So the more you can set yourself apart from these other sellers, the better off you're going to be. So that's what I got for today's video. Just wanted to give you guys a kind of thought process on how I actually run all of my eBay lives. Coming up in the future, I do want to do like a pros and cons video for eBay Live. I also want to kind of give you guys an actual behind the scenes look into how I go about setting up all of my eBay lives. I think that's going to be a really cool video. So that's coming up as well. I do have a lot of ideas for other videos. A lot of them are going to be focused around eBay Live because that right now that is my biggest passion. That is the biggest portion of my business right now. So hopefully you guys enjoy these eBay Live talks. You're going to be seeing a lot more videos in regards to eBay Live and just kind of how my business is growing with eBay Live. So I'm really excited about it. Hope you guys are as well. Thank you very much for watching. As always, thank you guys very much for all of the positive comments in the first video. I did really, really appreciate all of the positive comments welcoming me back onto YouTube. And hopefully this time I am actually here to stay. I think it will happen. I'm really excited to kind of take you guys on this journey with me. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Really do appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next one.